Welcome to Conscious Talk, radio that makes a difference. Conscious Talk is brought to you in part by Essential Formulas, distributors of Dr. Ohhira's and Reg Active, now available online as well as in fine health stores. And now I welcome your hosts for the day, Brenda Michaels and Rob Spears.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in with us here today on Conscious Talk. It's radio that makes a difference.
Well, we are now officially into the spring. We've seen our first sun and steady sun with temperatures going up. We've had our big sugar opportunities, so it's time to start really taking care of ourselves. I know a lot of you have heard about maybe a resurgence of COVID. Well, that's not going to happen if we stay healthy.
Yes, and stay the course. Stay the course. That is really what's important. And Rob and I were talking about the fact that, it wouldn't be a bad idea if maybe all of us did a spring cleanse. If you do it 3 or 4 times a year, and there's so many great cleanses out there, you don't have to do something that you feel really terrible, or you can't work, or you can't play. There are some great cleanses out there. So maybe think about doing like a cleanse for spring.
Yeah, and what we would suggest is that the same thing we've been suggesting for 20 years. Eat organic. Drink filtered good water. Make sure you're getting enough of the vitamins and minerals and things that you need because they're not in our foods, organic or otherwise. And, pay attention to those products that we talk about on the show. When we say they're really for all of us, it's not about supporting the show, although we're very appreciative of that, but it's about supporting all of us. These are the tried and true things. We really hit the basics that help with the underlying causes of dis-ease and as well as disease.
Yeah, now you can get out, you can walk, you can jog. If you're like us, you can ride horses, you can do things that really help your body to move and exercise. Try to get as much fresh air if you can, and the sun, because the sun really truly is good for us.
Yeah, and I would like to really remind everybody about the importance of kindness.
Yes.
We've just gone through a really difficult period of time on all levels. Challenges are in front of us. Kindness is our best way of mitigating a lot of those problems.
So be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and by all means, be in gratitude. That is one of the greatest ways to bring joy into your life, is to be grateful for right where you are, no matter what's going on, and see how that transforms the situation. Well, stay tuned. We have a great show coming up. We'll be right back.
You're listening to an encore presentation of Conscious Talk, radio that makes a difference. Welcome to Conscious Talk, radio that makes a difference. Well, coming up this hour on Conscious Talk. So when it comes to the end of your life, what do you think you have learned? Will you know what really matters? Well, we'll talk to Dr. Karen Wyatt, author of 7 Lessons from Dying, How to Nurture What Really Matters. So wouldn't it be good to have some answers right about now? And now I welcome your hosts for the day, Brenda Michaels and Rob Spears.
And thank you, Benny, and welcome, folks, to another hour of Conscious Talk, radio that makes a difference. And yes, we're making a difference again here today, because we bring to you the very best people we know of, people that are making a positive difference in their lives and the lives of others, people that are learning, growing. They're waking up, coming on the show, teaching all of us. And on this show, we learn and grow together, one listener at a time. That listener is you.
Well, our special guest today is Dr. Karen Wyatt. She is an MD. She also hosts a radio show. It's called the End of Life University Podcast, which features conversations with experts who work in all aspects of end-of-life care. And that's only appropriate because we read her book, 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying, How to Nurture What Really Matters. She teaches that in order to live life fully, we must overcome our fear of death and embrace the difficulties that life brings us. So we're going to find out what this is all about. Dr. Wyatt, welcome to Conscious Talk.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join you.
So, Karen, how did you get started doing this particular type of work? Because it's really, we consider very sacred work.
Well, yes, it started long ago, back when early during my medical career. I started out as a family practice doctor, taking care of people of all ages and delivering babies. And about 3 years into my medical practice, a tragedy struck when my father took his own life. And so it was absolutely devastating for me to lose my dad to suicide, because I had training in psychology and psychiatry as part of my medical training, and worked with people who were depressed and suicidal. And the knowledge that I couldn't save my own father, who's one of the people I loved the most in the world, completely ripped me apart. And suicide, at any rate, is hard to deal with for anyone. But for me also as a doctor, I had this added burden of guilt, feeling that maybe I hadn't done the right thing or said the right thing to try to help him and save him. So I really plummeted into grief and guilt and despair for a few years after his death, and couldn't seem to find my way out of it. And then one day I got the inspiration to call hospice, and it occurred to me that maybe if I wasn't finding my way through this darkness, I needed to just dive right into the middle of it. And by working with people who were dying, I would either figure out how to live with my grief or not. So that's what I did. I started volunteering for hospice, and as soon as I got there, I recognized that this was the type of work I'm here to do, that this is actually where I belonged and the path that I should be on. So I ultimately shifted my practice completely to working in hospice with people at the end of life.
Yeah.
What a great gift your father gave you. I mean, this is what Rob and I, through our challenges and tragedies in life, have learned, that on the other side of it, when you're willing to open up like you did, you followed that inspiration, and good for you, and thank you for doing that. It takes a lot of courage. That there are gifts available in every single challenge, and this is part of what your father gave you. And I know that might be hard to hear, but we really believe there's purpose in everything.
Yes, I came to believe that too. And really it all came full circle after I wrote this book, 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying. The day my copies of the book arrived from the publisher, I opened the box, and the first words out of my mouth were, "Look what we did, Dad." And I knew in that moment my dad had been my silent partner all along, all those years of doing hospice work and then even writing the book. And it came full circle to suddenly this death that at the time seemed so senseless and so meaningless, and something that should not have happened. It turned out, in retrospect, to have been perfect and to have been in alignment with what was meant to happen next.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
One of the things that was very special for me was being with my parents when they died. And I gained so much from that experience. But look, death is this universal question, and we all have to confront it. And, we have a lot of trouble with that, especially in this culture. So why did you want to focus on the perspective of dying? I mean, now that you've been or had the experience of the hospice work, why is it important for people to read this before we're dying? I mean, I think a lot of people might think, well, okay, this is going to help me die, but that's not your perspective.
Yes, it really came about from what I learned from the patients, sitting at the bedside of people who were at the very end of life and had this new perspective of looking backwards at life, knowing they were reaching the end in their last few days. And a lot of them struggled with what was I here for? Did I fulfill my purpose? What is the meaning of life? But many of them came to the conclusion that life is really about love. It's really about learning how to love. And some of them said to me, I've had this profound realization that I should have been focusing my life on love all along, and I have never done that. And they said, if I had known this 20 years ago, it would have changed everything. And then it occurred to me that this is a message that other people need to hear. Don't wait until you're on your bedside or on your deathbed when you can start focusing on love and forgiveness during your last few days of life. You can start living that type of life now, no matter where you are. And so after hearing it over and over again from my patients, how much they wished that they had thought about these things earlier in life, I realized that's something I could share, that maybe I could teach other people.
Well, and what's so fascinating here, Karen, is your father, that was something not planned. It was out of the blue. Suicide is definitely a very, very challenging thing to deal with. But people die. They step out on the street and a car hits them. Maybe they die in a car accident suddenly. Maybe they drop dead from a heart attack. What do people that have had to deal with sudden death that way, what can they learn from your book? Because accepting that, as you know, having gone through it, is incredibly difficult.
Yes. And I think for me, once I started studying the process of death in a way and how we die, and in hospice, most people have a gradual dying process, and yet still the day that it happens, it still feels to the family almost as shocking and unexpected, like, I wasn't thinking it would happen today. I didn't know today would be the day when it does happen. And I realized that if we start out at a much younger age recognizing that everyone is going to die at some point, and we have a much more open and accepting perspective on death in general, I think it helps us. We're less shocked and less devastated in a way when it happens, because all along we've been keeping that in the back of our mind, that someday everyone that we love will die, and I have to be preparing myself for that. I have to prepare all along to know that this will happen at some point, and so I want to be emotionally and spiritually ready to be able to navigate that and deal with it when it does happen.
Yes, and you're not saying that we aren't going to be emotionally affected, that we are not still going to have the pain of the person leaving, because we will miss that person, correct?
Yes, exactly. We will still go through all the pain of it and the grief of it, but we may not need to shut our lives down to such a great extent when it happens, because we may, if we can be a little bit better prepared. But also, it helps us appreciate the time we do have. And so I think that became clear to me with my mom after having my father die so suddenly, to realize I need to appreciate every moment, every day, every week, every month that I have with my mom, because I won't have her forever. And so I think it helps us live more fully and make the most of the time we do have together. And I think that's helpful with our grief as well, because we don't look back and regret that, I wasted time. I wasted time being angry at my mom instead of loving her.
Yeah. Well, there were so many great stories also in this book. So we are going to continue to talk about 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying, How to Nurture What Really Matters by Dr. Karen Wyatt, and we'll be back after these messages.
Have you ever wished there was a drug-free solution to inflammation and pain that was safe, easy, and didn't involve a doctor? Now there is. It's called the Avicen, and it's the best investment we've ever made. Others have described it as the ultimate anti-aging machine. This amazing FDA Class II cleared device is changing lives by giving relief from pain and inflammation. Users place their hand inside a vacuum chamber, which uses negative pressure and heat to safely infuse heat into the circulatory system, raising blood temperature approximately 1 degree, which reduces blood thickness and increases microvascular circulation. This is where the body heals, gets its nutrients, and pain and inflammation are reduced at the core level. To find out more, go to nulifeventures.com/intentional healing or call 360-385-1909. That's 360-385-1909 for all the information you need on the Avicen medical device. If you're like us, you really appreciate companies that are sustainable, caring, and conscious. This describes Aloha Bay, a company not only guaranteed by the World Fair Trade Organization, but also donates a portion of their sales to Doctors Without Borders and other great causes. Some of the amazing products made by Aloha Bay include Himalayan salt table and bath products, chakra candles, Himalayan salt lamps, feng shui votives, and much more. A majority of the jar candles are hand-poured into recycled glass, scented with 100% pure essential oils, many certified organic. Aloha Bay is an employee-owned company whose products are not only affordable, but beautiful and deliciously scented. To learn more and order their amazing products, visit alohabay.com. That's alohabay.com.
Conscious Talk, radio that gives back to yourself. It's a new year and full of hope and enthusiasm for a new beginning. You're thinking about going back to the gym. Well, the problem is, every year it's the same thing. Exercise gets harder because your muscles get tired faster than you remember. And then the next day, you're so sore you can hardly move. Well, that's what Power pH with BioPH was designed to deal with. The active ingredient, BioPH, helps remove the acids your muscles form while exercising, giving you a better workout. Then you'll be amazed on how Power pH relieves soreness the next day, so you'll feel inspired to continue your exercise program into the year instead of giving up after a few attempts. Power pH was clinically tested by competitive athletes who found both their performance and recovery greatly enhanced. If Power pH with BioPH works for them, it will work for you too. Granted unique dietary ingredient status by the FDA, BioPH is the most bioavailable alkalizing ingredient we know of. Testing showed that in just 5 days, Power pH reduced body acid 53% on average, while reducing inflammation and aiding in the uptake of beneficial nutrients. Discover the difference Power pH can make in your life. For more information and to order, go to powersofph.com. That's powersofph.com. Discover the power of higher pH. Your body will thank you.
When you buy health products, you can save up to 50% at vitaminlife.com, the world's largest selection of supplements, herbs, homeopathic, health and beauty products, and more. Choose from vitaminlife.com's 30,000 products from over 700 brands, including Solar Ray, Jarrow Formulas, New Chapter, Country Life, Source Naturals, Nature's Way, Enzymatic Therapy, Now Foods, Doctor's Best, and Aubrey Organics. Go to vitaminlife.com and save up to 50% on supplements, or call vitaminlife.com to order at 866-998-8855.
Find out the latest about your favorite shows on Alternative Talk 1150. Check out 1150kknw.com.
And welcome back. You are listening to Conscious Talk. And, you know, we love the conversations that we've had over the years. And of course, this is our 20th year, so we've had a lot of them. We love bringing you people that whose books move us and instruct us and help us to move forward in this life. And today we're talking about a wonderful book by Dr. Karen Wyatt. It's called 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying, How to Nurture What Really Matters. I want to point out her website is eoluniversity.com. I believe the EOL stands for End of Life University. So eoluniversity.com. So Karen, I had mentioned that there are a lot of wonderful stories in the book, and one of the things that really struck me, that in your book you talk about the power of the experience of awe. Now, I mentioned that I'd been with my parents when they died, and I could say it was really an awesome experience. It was really very interesting. With my mother, after being in a coma for 2 weeks, when I got to speak with her or to, talk to her, she woke up for the first time, which freaked out everybody in my family. And she said to me, with a voice a million miles away, it seemed, isn't life interesting? Then closed her eyes and she was gone. So that was an awesome experience for me.
Wow.
And when my dad died, it was also a very moving experience because I was alone with him in the middle of the night. So is this the kind of awe that you're talking about, or is this more of a useful tool, in life in general?
Well, on the one hand, yes, it is, because death itself, as Brenda, you mentioned, it's a sacred passage, and you become aware of it the moment you're sitting with someone who's going through that process. But I think we can transfer that awe and the sacredness into daily life. And I love the idea, the definition of awe being just perceiving that there's something bigger than you. There's something bigger than just this human life that we're experiencing. And so those moments when you look outside at the stars and at night and see the Milky Way or something, or when you stand and look at a beautiful vista, a mountain vista, or even just looking at a tiny flower that's blooming up from the soil, you can feel that sense of awe that there is something so beautiful taking place and happening here in this universe. And I'm a part of it, but it's far bigger than what I experience in just my day-to-day life. And that's what I think of as that feeling of awe. But I have felt that as I've sat with my patients while they are going through the dying process, is that this is something so much bigger than we even realize.
So here's something interesting, Karen. A lot of people might think, well, gee, why do I have to even think about dying, or any lessons I can learn from that right now, or any lessons that can be brought to me if I'm not there yet? I don't feel like I'm going to die tomorrow, which nobody knows, but you know how we can be in that kind of energy where we think we know, and yet we don't. So, what can you say to people that resist that way? Is there anything that you can help them with?
Well, I think it's really pervasive in our society in particular, because over the past century or more, we've been kind of anesthetized against death. It's been removed from our daily presence and our sight, really, because patients are taken to the hospital and might die there, and funerals are held in funeral homes, and all of that used to happen at home, right in the home, so that even children had experienced the death of a loved one and knew death as a reality and something that happened for everyone. But we've become so distanced and so remote from the idea of death as being a natural part of life that I think that adds to our avoidance and our denial of it. And so I think we need to revisit the whole idea of that death is just part of this natural cycle for our human bodies. As souls, we come in and we inhabit this physical form, and at birth, and then at the end of life, we will leave this physical form, and that's what death is. And it's natural, and it's part of the whole cycle. And what I feel is that people can live lives more consciously when they do recognize that this human body that we're in is a gift, but it's a short-term gift. We won't have it forever. So take advantage of the time you have. If you're healthy, fantastic. You can do all sorts of things, and you can enjoy having this body, and you can make the most of the life that you have right now. But so many people are wandering through life, I think, still asleep and not even recognizing what a gift they have in just being alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I also think on a religious note, and I grew up in a religious church, that we never talked about, maybe reincarnation, that the soul is eternal, that life goes on beyond being in these bodies, that we more than likely come back to heal and learn more lessons on this plane. And so there's millions of people that believe this is it. Once they die, it's over. I think that, propagates a lot of fear. Can you talk to that for a moment?
Oh, yes, definitely. I see that over and over again, that the people with the most fear in our society are people who have never had an experience that has shown them that there's something more than just this physical existence. And so they can't allow themselves to believe it. And but also there is a group of people with a lot of fear who have maybe been raised with religious beliefs that there's a hell, and they have a fear that they themselves will go to hell when they die. I see fear in that group also. But I ask people who have no way of believing that there's some sort of an afterlife to at least open their minds. And for one thing, for me, working with the dying and sitting at the bedside and seeing what happens for people as they're close to death, it's amazing. People see loved ones who have already died in the room who are coming to greet them. They have conversations with them, and sometimes they have those conversations out loud where we can hear them. And all of that, it's so validating of the fact that there's so much more than what we're aware of. So I often tell people too, if you're really afraid of death, if you can find your way to volunteer at a hospice and just get some training and just meet a few people who are approaching death, you can actually be exposed to what a beautiful experience it can be, and that can help a lot.
One of the things that you mentioned was, hey, if you're healthy, really enjoy it, go for it, have those experiences. But one of your lessons is about suffering, and the advice ultimately is to embrace your difficulties in life. Can you expound a little bit on that one?
Well, I think that goes along, with our avoidance of death as well, that we want to avoid any sort of pain or discomfort in life. We're always looking for maximizing, how can I maximize pleasure and avoid anything that's uncomfortable. But in reality, when we really look at life and how it teaches us and how we learn things, it's often through those difficulties and setbacks and the challenges and disappointments of life that we learn the most. And so I think it's healthiest for us if we can stop wanting to resist and avoid things that come along that we don't like in life, and be more accepting and surrendering in a way toward those events. And this year 2020 that we're in is a perfect example of that. None of us has any control over what's going on here, health-wise or economically in our society. We're just being asked to accept that this is a really difficult time to be alive. But when we stop resisting it and we say, all right, this is where I am, this is what's happening, so how can I learn something from this and make it the best it can possibly be?
Yes, another thing that Rob and I've learned is that suffering really is caused by our resistance to what is. That's when we really suffer, when we cannot accept what is unfolding in our lives. We end up suffering. At least that's been our experience. Is that how you look at suffering?
Yes, so true, so true. We make it so much worse, and it's partly because somehow we have an idea that we shouldn't ever have to suffer,
right.
It shouldn't happen to us. Nothing should happen or should come along in our lives. And when we change that entire attitude and understand, I even think as souls, I think we come here to planet Earth to inhabit these physical bodies in order to experience suffering, because if I think about, the spiritual realm, a place of unconditional love and light, I don't think there's suffering there. And so
right.
it seems to me that souls may choose to come to Earth because this is the laboratory where you learn how do you get through suffering, how do you to surrender to it, how do you stop resisting it, and how do you maximize love even when you're suffering.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we're here today with Dr. Karen Wyatt. The book is 7 Lessons for Living and Dying. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Dr. Ronald Hoffman, and it's that time of year again when everyone suffers from some kind of upper respiratory problem. We miss work and feel miserable spending too much time with doctors and pharmacists. That is, unless we protect ourselves and our families with a product that I recommend to my patients, Clear Saline Nasal Spray and Sinus Rinse. Clear combines the unique properties of xylitol and the health-promoting benefits of a saline nasal spray to help cleanse, moisturize, and soothe your sinuses and nasal passages. Clear helps wash away bacteria, pollens, and other irritants before they have a chance to attack the sensitive tissues in your upper respiratory tract. Clear is easy to use, effective, and safe for people of all ages. Clear is simply your best defense in an increasingly dirty and polluted world. I use it myself. You can find Clear Saline Nasal Spray and Sinus Wash at Vitamin Shop, CVS, Rite Aid, and other drugstores, supermarkets, and pharmacies near you, as well as Amazon. Or you can visit Clear on the web at clear.com. That's www.xlear.com.
Our bodies depend on a potent powerhouse of beneficial bacteria that support and improve every aspect of our health. Dr. Ohhira's formula encourages probiotics to function at their peak performance. Encapsulated in a vegetarian soft gel, Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics is a live paste of 12 strains of probiotic bacteria and nourishing prebiotics from whole fruits and vegetables. Transformative postbiotic compounds created during Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics' exclusive 3-year fermentation process are present in every capsule. These restorative postbiotics nurture diverse gut bacteria, leading to better digestion, improved immunity, and exceptional health. Join the millions of people worldwide who know the power of Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics. Discover the Dr. Ohhira difference for yourself. Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics are available at natural health retailers nationwide and online. Go to www.essentialformulas.com for a retailer near you. That's essentialformulas.com.
Conscious Talk, radio that brightens your day.
There's great benefit to raising consciousness in your environment. You feel a higher sense of well-being, sleep and meditate more deeply, boost your natural healing ability, increase focus, concentration, and creativity. You can have these results in your living and working space with focused life force energy innovations. Experience focused life force energy for yourself in a free 15-day trial with no strings attached. To apply, go to conscioustalk.net and click on Conscious Partners at the top of the homepage. Rob and I are on this program and loving it. We feel more joy and happiness, a higher sense of well-being, and we're sleeping better. And we've also noticed our animals are more playful and energetic. Make your home a healing sanctuary or take the good feelings, high consciousness energy with you on your cell phone with the FLFE program. Don't forget to get your free trial today at conscioustalk.net in the Conscious Partners section.
Stop breathing right now. No, really, hold your breath. This is how it feels when you're stuffed up due to colds, flu, pollen, dander, postnasal drip, or any other reason. That's when you need Clear Saline Nasal Spray, the only spray with the power of xylitol. That simple saline solution you're using is only doing half the job. It's just rinsing. In multiple research studies, xylitol has been shown to reduce bacterial adhesion and help keep your nose moist and clean much longer than saline alone, making Clear more effective at washing away that nasty gunk in your nose. Clear is so powerful, it's been granted over 11 patents. So step up from that wimpy saline spray to something that actually works faster and better at getting you the relief you need to start breathing now. And if your doctor isn't talking to you about Clear for your congestion, maybe you need to get a new doctor. You don't just rinse your hands. Why would you just rinse your nose? Clear Saline Nasal Spray with xylitol.
Available at Vitamin Shop, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, as well as Amazon.com. For a complete list of retailers, visit clear.com. That's xlear.com.
Talk radio with a purpose. Alternative Talk 1150.
Hey, welcome back, folks, and thanks for tuning in today with us here on Conscious Talk. Our website is conscioustalk.net. You can follow us on Facebook. You can tune into our website. You can download for free from our archives up to 2 years of shows that are available. You can podcast on almost every podcast service that is out there. You can stream us live by going to our site or 1150kknw.com as well, but easy from our site at conscioustalk.net. Well, we're here today talking to Dr. Karen Wyatt, and I need to correct what I said in the last segment. It is 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying is her book. Her website is eoluniversity.com. So, Karen, I just wanted to follow up on something you said in the last segment about, we come back here maybe to learn about suffering, because from our perspective, souls are eternal. And so as a soul, we're always wanting to experience something, lots of things. And so you can see how we might come back here to experience suffering and then learn from it, because as I said in our very first segment, Rob and I believe there's a purpose to everything. So we feel that whatever you encounter this lifetime, you're here to learn about it. And there's something to learn from it, which gives it a lot of meaning instead of holding a belief that it's meaningless. And one of the things I wanted to share with you is when my mother was in her late 90s, she died in January this year at 98. She suffered, and I mean suffered physically. She was in dementia. She had a lot of pain. Her body was falling apart. And I used to say prayers for her acceptance of death so that she could leave, because I knew once she escaped her body or she left her body, she was out of the physical pain. And then after I started praying like that, I thought, oh my, should I feel guilty about wanting her to leave? It's not that I wanted her to leave, it's that I wanted her to be out of pain. Have you run across that, or can you say anything to that?
Yes, definitely. And that is actually something I've commonly heard from family members who have had the same prayer for my loved one to, please release them from this physical existence where at least it appears to me that they're suffering a great deal, and I don't want them to have to go through that. So I think that that's a very common, and it's a very loving desire for your loved one to want them to be comfortable and to want them to be able to pass through the suffering. But I started to recognize in hospice that our patients, these patients that were dying, really had their own timeline, their own time frame. And that's when I started to recognize maybe the soul is doing a certain amount of work through this whole process, and it needs whatever time it needs to complete that work before the person dies. And there were some people that I thought would die fairly quickly who lingered for months and months. But I could tell by listening to what they said and watching them process that so much learning was happening during those months. Other patients that I thought might have lived longer actually died fairly quickly, and that's the experience I had with my mother. I came to stay with her thinking I'd be taking care of her for about 3 months at the end of her life, and she died in 5 days, which was a shock. But she worked through and processed things very quickly during that 5 days. We had this amazing healing between the two of us, and that was it. So everyone has their own time frame. Every soul has their own time frame.
Thanks for that, as Brenda was going to say, because I've had that experience too with people dying, and my feeling about it is, hey, sometimes they don't get it till the last minutes, but you can tell, because I'm sure time has collapsed for them when they're dying, that they get it. And the reason that I picked up your book in the first place and why it so fascinated me was that I've always felt, hey, let's beat the rush. How cool could it be to learn these things before the last few seconds of your life, because it makes life so much more enjoyable and fulfilling. And maybe, you can move on to another level, and that's, in my imagination, quicker because you did the work. So when we come back, we're going to continue our discussion with Dr. Karen Wyatt about 7 lessons for living from the dying, and we'll touch on a couple more of those lessons. Stay tuned. You are listening to Conscious Talk, radio that makes a difference.
What does healing mean to you? Are you physically in pain, emotionally distraught, spiritually adrift, mentally confused, frightened, driven by thoughts of the past or future? After years of healing work on ourselves and others, Rob and I have developed energetic and vibrational methods to help you heal your body and transform your consciousness to support a new level of well-being and health. All these energetic bodies, when in balance, physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental, contribute to your overall health and well-being. This timing calls for us to wake up and become who we really are, leaving behind the illusion that getting sick and old is normal. Let us help you reach a new level of health and well-being, a level of consciousness that is filled with new possibilities. If you're ready to move forward and heal the whole of you, give us a call at 360-385-1909. That's 360-385-1909.
Conscious Talk, radio that lifts you up.
Now more than ever, it is important to have a healthy immune system. Many health professionals agree that probiotics are a leading natural therapy for boosting immune health. Why? Because 70% of your body's immune cells reside in the GI tract. By taking a superior probiotic daily, like Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, with their postbiotic metabolites, you can enhance your overall immune system and immune response. For additional immune support, get RegActive's Immune Formula to boost your glutathione levels, since our glutathione levels go down if we feel stressed. Maintaining glutathione levels is a key factor for natural defense. For a short-term immune boost, try Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus, which provides probiotic and immune support and includes Brazilian green propolis for superior antioxidant support and vitamin E, astaxanthin, and flax oil. Be proactive about your immune health. Ask your retailer today about Dr. Ohhira's probiotics, RegActive Immune Formula, and Dr. Ohhira's Propolis Plus today. Also available online.
Miss a show on KKNW? Check out 1150kknw.com for podcasts of many of our programs. That's 1150kknw.com.
And welcome back. Yes, you are still listening to Conscious Talk, but hey, if you just joined us, you're going to want to hear this conversation, and you can do that by going to conscioustalk.net and put Karen Wyatt, Dr. Karen Wyatt, in the search engine, and you'll find her guest page. There'll be a play button there. You can hear the show as many times as you want, or check it out on your podcast services. Just search for Conscious Talk. I'm Rob Spears.
And I'm Brenda Michaels. And yes, our special guest is Dr. Karen Wyatt. The book is 7 Lessons for Living from the Dying. And I just want to follow up a little bit on what we discussed in the last segment, Karen. And I said that I was hoping, I was really praying for my mother to die sooner because she was in a lot of physical and I felt emotional turmoil. And what you said about people have a timeline they have to process, that's what I learned. When she finally did go, I realized she had a lot of processing to do, particularly around my brothers, because she and I had done a lot of work together, but she hadn't done anything with my brothers. And I really felt intuitively that she was processing a lot of that. And then when she was done, she was done. So I wanted to thank you for that lesson, because that's a big lesson to learn. I now understand that we don't want our loved ones in pain. But the pain does serve a purpose. If they have lessons to learn from that, that's the time it's going to take, is the time it's going to take. And it really, really does help me to be at peace with that. So thank you for that.
Well, another one of your lessons is around forgiveness. Now, we've talked about forgiveness over the years, but,
a lot.
But we'd like to hear your point of view.
I would say forgiveness is one of the lessons that I saw almost every single patient working on at the very end of life. And for many people, they had long lists of of people that they wanted to forgive, that they'd held grudges and resentment toward for years and years. So they were going back through all of these events from their earlier life, trying to figure out, how do I forgive these people? How do I forgive myself for what I did or said? And how do I get them to forgive me? And I saw what an overwhelming task it was for people to be working through all of that. That's what motivated me to think forgiveness is clearly something I could be working on right now, today, so that when I get to that point, I've already made it through my backlist, maybe, and I've already done a lot of this work, so that there isn't so much to process. And all of them said they felt a need to forgive before they died because they wanted to just be at peace. They didn't want to carry any anger or bitterness with them, and they were highly motivated to resolve all of those old wounds. But it's so much work to do at the very end. It makes sense to me that we could start it right away, right now. There's no reason not to. And maybe make those last months and weeks of life easier.
Did you ever come across anyone that was in the dying process that wasn't willing to forgive? That, because I had this experience with my father. I spent some time with him before he died. Unfortunately, I wasn't with him when he died. I was with him the day before, and I had done a lot of forgiveness work around our relationship, and I told him that I forgave him, and I asked him to forgive me, and he didn't answer me. And I just wonder if you've encountered that.
Yes, we did have some patients who were not willing to talk about it and not willing to look at it. And there were a few I worked with who actually, they were some of the patients who held on a very long time. It took a long time for them to die, and they lingered for months. And I felt that they were resisting some of the work that maybe was there for them to do, and struggling with that. I still wonder if even those people at the very last moment before they die might find their way to that forgiveness, but that I don't know for sure. Not being able to talk with them in that very last moment to know, but that's something that I wonder about.
Yes.
Yeah. We also, over the years, one of your lessons is about surrender and letting go of expectations, looking at it from that point of view. Why is that important for us, before we're dying?
As you mentioned, that it's sometimes resisting what is in life is what makes us miserable and makes us suffer so much in life. And when it became clear to me that there are so many things in my life that I can't control, if I just stop trying to control them, I'm so much happier and so much more at ease. And so I began to see the value when I saw that it was actually a blessing to them once they did just surrender and stop trying to control, stop trying to push things or make things be different than they are. I saw how much more peace they experienced, and then I realized that is something I want in my life right now. And how much of my energy do I waste trying to change things that can't be changed?
What's so fascinating too about the timing of your book, Karen, is what's going on now with COVID-19. What so many thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people are experiencing right now. Those on the family side that have, loved ones that are dying from COVID-19, they can't be in the room with them. They can't go through the dying process with them. I mean, it just feels like this book was, your father had you really, it's a perfect time for a book like this to come out because there's death all around us right now on the planet. There's always been, but it is really now in our faces.
It's so true. And, there's a good story about that I wrote the first version of this book 10 years ago. And so it was published back then and didn't do so well in sales because I think it was a little bit ahead of its time. People weren't so interested or concerned about death. And then 2 years ago, I got an offer from Watkins Publishing to re-release the book, so I revised it, and who knew 2 years ago they said it'll come out in May of 2020, and I had no idea that it was going to be, that it was going to land here with the very perfect timing.
Yeah.
Well, there's a perfect example of letting go of your expectations. Things tend to happen in what we call divine timing. And, so death is, the fear of death is that, this whole idea of impermanence, we're in fear about that. So what advice do you give people?
Well, I really love the Buddhist concept of impermanence and the fact that if you think about it, nothing lasts and everything changes. And so I tell people to start by thinking about that everything around them, ultimately it breaks or falls apart. Nothing lasts here in this physical world. Everything changes. And if you go out in nature, all around you, you see trees that are dying and flowers that have already died, and you start to sense that the cycle of life and death is necessary here on the planet. Nothing could be alive right now if it weren't for death occurring in nature. And by starting there, that seems to help us recognize that we're just one more living being here on the planet who fall into that same cycle of life and death. And we don't really have to fear it, especially when we know that there's something more to us than just a physical body. We are souls, and souls that will go on, but souls that at some point need to leave behind the body so that they can carry on with their journey and go on to the next learning experience. And so for me, that mindset is what can really help with fear.
Yes, and I think that's a beautiful way to end our discussion today with you, Karen, is that, there is really, truly nothing to fear except what we make up in our own mind. And again, that goes back to that resistance piece to what is. So we want to thank you so much, Karen, for writing this beautiful book and the work that you're doing. It's so needed on the planet right now. We so appreciate you and this work. Again, folks, 7 lessons for living from the dying, and that is how to nurture really, what really matters is the subtitle, how to nurture what really matters. So thank you for joining us today, folks, and thank you again, Karen. Have a beautiful day, everyone, and we'll see all of you next time right here on Conscious Talk.
What if you could be your own healer? Well, you can unleash your natural healing abilities with the AIM program of energetic balancing. This exciting new spiritual technology has been featured in best-selling books like Natural Cures, and in Dr. Wayne Dyer's There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. The AIM program of energetic balancing allows you to heal yourself 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. More than 60,000 people have experienced the AIM program of energetic balancing. The novel Sanctuary, The Path to Consciousness, walks you through one's journey of self-healing with this spiritual technology. To learn more about energetic self-healing, you can order the novel Sanctuary today by calling 877-500-3622 or request a free AIM information kit. Call 877-500-3622 or visit energeticmatrix.com. Unleash your natural self-healing abilities with the AIM program of energetic balancing. Conscious Talk, radio that gives back to yourself.
Did you know by age 35, most people start to notice the effects of declining hormone levels? Symptoms include lack of energy, less focus, decreased sex drive, weight gain, and poor quality sleep. Twist 25 DHEA cream helps men and women 35 and up to maintain vitality, youthful vigor, enhanced mood and focus, and a better night's sleep. As a base building block for hormones, DHEA gives the body a key foundation it uses to make hormones. Visit twist25.com to learn more or call 888-489-4782. 888-4-TWIST25.